Hank South, 247 Sports, Bama Online Recruiting, in for the conversation. Good morning, Hank. How you doing, sir?
Hey, good morning, Martin. I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. Glad you're able to be with us, man. Just give us an update. I know Bama has big plans for this weekend, but what else is going on in the recruiting world?
Yeah, this is kind of the first big weekend they've had in terms of visitors in a while. This is their second junior day of the year. February was a dead period for the first time, and as I can remember, so they weren't able to host anybody on campus. After that last weekend of January when they had their first junior day, February 1st. So they're going to have some big names on campus. Obviously, spring practice starts next week, so it's not going to be centered around a practice, but it'll give the coaches some more one-on-one time with some of their top targets in the 2021 class and a few underclassmen as well. Several big names expected. As far as commits go, Deontay Lawson told me he's coming back. Just a couple of the higher-rated guys that have told us they plan to be there. Mario Williams, one of the top receivers in the country out of Florida. Sage Ryan, a four-star athlete, top 100 athlete out of Louisiana, is expected in. And then a guy named Kane Williams is another top 100 defensive back out of the state of Louisiana. So, there's a handful of guys. There's going to be more added to the list as we get closer to Saturday. And then, there's a lot of big names expected on campus throughout the rest of the month of March as well, when spring practice starts. And then, for the practices and then, throughout the month. So, it's going to be a big month. Recruiting's going to start picking up after this dead period. And I think Bama's going to start, really picking up some momentum on the recruiting trail.
All right, and we'll get back to that because I'm looking at the rankings, and I'm not going to say the number out loud right now because the Alabama folks could drive off a curve or a cliff or something. But we got Pat that has a question for you, Hank. Pat, you're in with Hank South. What's your question, man?
Good morning, Hank. With offensive line being one of our biggest needs this year, that we've had several that have moved on to other places and stuff that we're waiting to their turn. That are we going to be able to get the Texas Twins to go head on and announce for us? Because tackles is important. But a little brother that's an offensive center, I think it's a big time need too. And then as you wait for your response on that, and then I'll give you my other question about more offensive linemen. Thank you.
Yeah, I think them is in a good spot for the Texas brothers, Tommy and James Brockermeyer. For the longest time, people, thought they were trending pretty heavily to Texas, and that's fair. Their dad played at Texas. He's an All-American. He was an All-American at Texas, and they live in Texas, so it kind of connect the dots. They had an older brother that played in Texas as well, so. But they've been trending to Texas on the 24/7 Sports crystal ball. But as time has gone on, they visited Bama last year for camp, and then came back for their junior day on February 1st when James Brockermeyer, Tommy Brockermeyer's little brother, got the Alabama offer. Of course, Tommy had one for a long time. He's number one offensive tackle in the class. James is a four-star center, so he's highly rated, has a lot of offers himself. But they're not calling themselves a package deal. But, they do want to play together at the next level. So, anytime they can get the same offer get an offer from the same school, it's big for them. So that Alabama offer, I feel like, was sort of a turning point at this point in their recruitment. And they're coming back for an official visit in about a month to Alabama. The unique thing about their recruitment is they can take pretty much 10 official visits as a family, just because each recruit can take an official visit. So, and you can bring your family. So, they can take 10 official visits if they wanted to. I'm not sure if they're going to take all 10, but the only school that's selected thus far to get 2 official visits is Alabama for them. So they're coming in early April, and then they're coming again in late June, right before the dead period. So Bama's going to get 2 OVs out of them, and I think if they were picking today, they'd pick Alabama. So I think they're, I think the Tide's in pretty good shape there for the Brockermeyer brothers.
Okay. All right. Next question is Mims, another maybe the number one offensive, depending on which service you look at, number one offensive tackle in the country, along with the one I've been talking about out of the Northeast. I'm guessing his name is Rushi. And hey, this guy's a mauler, and he's nearly 6'8". And a 300-pounder, very, very muscular, and that I see where he does have the Alabama offer now. And so maybe things is heating up a little bit on this guy from the Northeast, especially with all the problems the Penn State coaches now facing. What are your feelings?
Yeah, with Mims, I think that one's really interesting. Everyone thinks he's a Georgia lock. And, maybe that's fair. He's from the state of Georgia. They're pressing for him pretty hard. Close relationship with their staff. But, he grew up an Alabama fan. I think Bama and Auburn are in it more than people think for him. I think he's taking it slow. I think he's going to Florida this weekend. So, he's looking around. He's not just this Georgia lock that everyone thinks he is. Maybe that would be the pick if today were the day. But, I think Bama has really kept it close with Amarius Mims. He was at Auburn yesterday, I believe. So he's taken plenty of visits, and he's been he took that visit to Bama prior to the week of their junior day back in January. Got a lot of one-on-one time with the staff. He and Dylan Brooks were the only visitors that weekend for his class. So he's definitely considered a priority in the class, and a guy Bama's recruiting really hard. And he's really connected with Kyle Flood and the whole staff there at Alabama. So I think they're in play pretty heavily for Amarius Mims. As far as Nolan Rucci, after the last time he asked about him, I kind of looked into it, see where Bama was, and haven't heard too much. Like you said, he does have the offer. So it's possible, he takes a spring visit or, sets up an official visit, but I just haven't heard a ton, between him and Alabama at this point, as much as I have, the Brockemeyer brothers or Mims or, Terrence Ferguson or some of those other guys. But, it's possible that picks up here in the next few months once, they start hosting more visitors.
Okay. Thanks, fellas. Have a blessed day. You're doing great.
Thanks. All right. Thanks, Pat.
Sure. Thanks.
Right. Speaking with Hank South 247 Sports, Bama Online Recruiting, you can follow at Hank South 247. All right, Hank, when you look at what's going on with Alabama and recruiting, they are sitting at number 30 right now. The good news is Georgia is at 28. So Alabama people, calm down. But what do you think is going into it? You have teams like Ohio State 10, Florida 13, Clemson 9, Miami 10, Notre Dame 7. When you look at these types of numbers, and then Alabama sitting at 2. The question you have to start asking yourself, well, who are they getting in those commitments? Are these some of the guys that Alabama's missing on early is just not making big news?
Yeah, I think the last couple of years, I think Bama's really slowed down the recruiting, like the evaluation process. We've seen Bama in the past, start to take commits real early, and then later on, for whatever reason, the evals don't. For whatever reason, maybe they have to part ways with the guy. Maybe I think they're really starting to not slow down, but really do more thorough evaluations, I guess. Not that they didn't do that in the past, but, really take their time with guys, not in a huge rush to fill up. And that's not to say they don't have – there's not guys out there that, they wouldn't take a commitment from right now or that they wouldn't want in their class. But I don't think there's just – I don't think there's this red alert going off in Tuscaloosa right now as far as, where their class is. They have 2 commitments. They had 3. They're in the top 15 a week ago. Latrell McCutcheon, the Austin cornerback, decommitted on a visit to Oklahoma. Not a huge surprise. He wasn't pushed out of the class or anything, but he's been talking to other schools. He was the same guy that tweeted a Virginia Tech offer 10 minutes after he committed to Alabama last June. So the writing was on the wall that he wasn't going to stop listening to other schools, and he takes that visit to OU and decommits. So it's not a huge shock there. And all it is just numbers right now. Bama gets a couple commitments, they're going to be, back in the top 15, top 10. So, I think it's way too early to panic in terms of, where Bama is sitting. And like you said, Georgia's right there in number 20. They have 2 commitments as well. I think 27 is their current rank. So, last year I thought it was kind of funny just because, we saw Bama really fill up in the summer. They got the majority of the class on board before the season even started. And then, that obviously made it to where there wasn't a lot of big commitments. There wasn't a lot of big news prior to the early signing period. They only signed one guy in the early signing period that wasn't already committed in Jason McClellan. And everyone was like, well, where are the commitments? And it was, Bama filled up early. So, it could be one of the situations where, Bama takes guys later now, and you're going to have some more news maybe in the season. But, I do think, with Junior Day this weekend and, with the guys starting to visit more this month and Bama able to kind of get guys at campus, I think the February dead period really slowed things down in terms of perception. But I think things are going to pick up this spring. A lot of their targets are trying to announce in spring and summer. So it's not going to be like this for long. So I wouldn't panic if you're for Bama fans.
Are you expecting any commitments coming out of Junior Day?
Maybe. You never know. Springtime's always a weird period because guys can just spontaneously pop. A guy will say he's waiting until after his senior season. He's like, I'm going to commit anyway. I'm going to go ahead and do it now. So you see it every year, guys you're not necessarily expecting. So I wouldn't rule it out, especially with high-profile visitors and guys that they really like on campus. But as far as looking at the list, I couldn't really pick one at this point that I could see popping this weekend.
All right, who's the top 2 or 3 Alabama guys, in-state guys that Alabama's going after?
I think you have to start with Quinton McKinstry. He's the priority target for a lot of schools, but the 3 schools you've been mentioning, I feel like for a long time now, or Alabama, Auburn, and Clemson for him. He has more schools after him than just that, but those are kind of the ones he's been tied to the most. He was at Auburn yesterday on a visit. He was at Bama for their Junior Day in early February. He told me he's not going anywhere this weekend, so we'll see if he pops up anywhere, but he actually recently had shoulder surgery, so he's not. So he's kind of on the mend there as far as his recovery and all that. So, but with DeQuincy, obviously it's potentially going to be basketball with him that kind of wins out where he wants to play both, because that's kind of his plan at this point at the next level. And obviously Bama's given him that opportunity to play both. So we'll see where things go there. I think Bama's actually in pretty decent shape with him. A lot of people think it's Clemson. A lot of people think to Auburn just from his ties with Patrick Nix before he went to Central High School. Now he has Sam Shade at his high school as head coach. And so he goes from a former Auburn player to a former Alabama player as head coach. So we'll see if that has any impact. But, DeQuincy McKinstry, Dylan Brooks, obviously the 5-star edge rusher. He's been a guy that's visited several times that's in the mix. So, I think those 2 guys are, if you look at top in-state targets outside of Deontay Lawson at this point, I think those are the 2 guys right now.
All right, that's Hank South 247 Sports Bama Online Recruiting at Hank South 247. Hank, tell our listeners what you got coming up and where they can find you, man.
Yeah, obviously a lot of Junior Day coverage. Then next week, spring practice coverage. So it's a good time to hop on board. There's a lot of news about to come out in terms of team and recruiting. So good time to jump on board. And if you sign up today on Bama Online, you can get your first month for $1. So it's a good time to join.
Good time to join. Get the first month for $1. Follow at Hank South 247 for great content. Big Junior Day coming up. Hank will be telling us about. Hank, we'll catch up with you next week. Appreciate you being part of the Martin Houston Show, man.
No problem. Thanks, Mom.